And that's how you pronounce Paloma. What's going on, everybody? This is the Coverbandconfidential podcast, the podcast for cover band musicians and band leaders to learn how to rock more and suck less. In Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Adam Johnson.
In Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
So this is something we haven't done in a while, but we're actually going to live stream the recording of this conversation, which is a thing we did a long, long time ago.
Boy, a long time
in a
ago.
galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
But, you know, we have garnered some followings on these other platforms, and it's just another way for us to engage with folks that may not have found us, but you've already found us. That's why you're here.
Right. Yeah. We last did it back in the day when we were making the joke about like greetings to our listener.
Yep.
That joke is expired. No longer.
Yes. It's when we tell that joke now, we seem insincere and probably arrogant.
Yeah. Yeah. Back then it was accurate.
Yes. But no longer. We have found our little modicum of success.
Our people are around us. That's for sure.
Indeed. So how's it going?
Good. You know, I had a couple of things I mentioned on the, I'll go ahead and tell everybody, I mentioned on the Patreon special episode last week that I've had a foot situation going on in both of my feet for a long time. And I saw a doctor about it 20 something years ago and got really no care and sent home. And then I saw another doctor about it last week and he actually is doing stuff. And so I'm on some steroids here to help reduce the inflammation, and we got a whole plan. I got PT going to happen, and the upshot of it is it's going to reduce my morning after gig agony by a fair amount, it seems like. So yeah, it's very promising.
So the first thing that popped in my head, because Dan was like, oh, I'm on prednisone, my immediate thought was, hey, are you going to get to gig between now and when that script runs out? And he's like, no. And I was like, that's way too bad. Now listen, we, as a podcast, do not advocate the use of drugs.
Performance enhancing or otherwise.
Exactly. That being said, if you've ever been in a situation where, this is a singer thing, where you have been on prednisone or you've gotten some sort of anti-inflammatory injection because of your illness, those gigs are pretty incredible because you are, in fact, 10 foot tall and bulletproof vocally. Well, and you can pull stuff off that you normally can't pull off, which is pretty fun.
Yeah. Just a little pinprick, but it'll be no more.
But in this case, you won't feel sick unless you were already sick, but that's why you were on the drugs in the first place
to begin with. Yeah. Hey, here's another thing that happened just today.
Yeah.
I've had an account at Thumbtack, good old Thumbtack. Forever. And I haven't canceled it, despite the fact that periodically they send me direct leads where somebody's actually picked me from a list. And by the time that news gets to me, they've already charged me $12 for this lead. So one came today and I was like, you know what? I'm digging in. I'm just digging in. And it was your typical Thumbtack lead that just was confused in its ask, was unclear about what it was looking for. It was going to take a ton to dig facts out of this person. But I did. I replied and said, hey, we'd love to play your Juneteenth party, which is really on the 22nd of June, at a civic event at a city near mine. Love to do it, but we need a little more detail. Any chance we could chat on the phone? And she came right back and said, yeah, absolutely. Here's my phone number. Actually, Thumbtack has the phone number. And I talked to her and she's very eager and I'm going to get her a contract tonight and it's probably going to be a deal. So,
wow.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if you lean in, Thumbtack's kind of okay. Now, it didn't solve the problem that she came to me and said it needed to be a band and she was looking for 2 musicians and that her price range was all out of whack. We're clarifying those things in person, but maybe the connection with a person who can talk is, I don't know, worth those $12. We'll find out.
But that's awesome that it actually worked out. I never in a million years would think that that would be a possibility.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm going to send I just sent the contract. Appreciate you re-upping me. I've changed computers since I last had a copy of our template. So thank you for sending it.
Yes. So Dan requested a copy of the contract that we sell.
Yeah.
You got to have it.
You got to have it. And so, yeah, I went through it. I stripped out all the stuff because it's a civic event. It's a 2-hour thing in a little bandstand. So they're not going to put us in a green room or give us dinner or any of that stuff. I guess you don't ask, you don't get, but I'm not going to complicate things by asking for it. So yeah, we'll see.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Not too much going on in our world. Well, actually, that's not true. There's been a lot of communication. You know, we've had some downtime, a considerable amount, just because of reasons. But the conversations opened back up. And so we're kind of looking towards our next set of shows. Now, the initial part of that conversation was for a live band karaoke gig that was supposed to happen in a couple of weeks. Well, the venue wasn't going to be ready, so they pushed it back into June, which means our June's going to be super busy. But we got some stuff that we need to work through and kind of figure out. And one of the cool things about that is in talking with Dan and people in the Patreon and then reaching out to the company, I got in touch with the folks at Maestro DMX to send me one of their AI assisted lighting controllers.
Yeah.
And so that apparently as of today is on its way.
Yeah. And I've owned that for a couple of months. I've been playing with it. I was in the pre-order, and looking at it I've done so far has been pretty promising, and it has had a really regular cadence of updates. So yeah.
One drop this week.
Yeah.
And they're very invested in this community learning about it and knowing it to the best of, their ability. So much so that they've actually volunteered for Dan and I to onboard with the company, with the head of the development people.
Not as employees, to get one-on-one training.
Yes.
Yeah. To use to use the systems in our own setups.
Right. So they want to make sure that we know as much as we possibly can know.
Yeah.
Which is very awesome for a company to be like, hey, these guys talk to a group of people that we want to work with and, sell our product to them. So I really appreciate them being willing to invest in us. And also we get to invest in our live show and make it better.
Yeah.
And I'm already looking at other options for fixtures and things to add to our live show.
Me too.
And actually, there was another thing that kind of popped up in the Patreon this week is I found this guy who now has a company called Petal, Petal, like flower petals, who developed this DIY lighting system that is now actually fully productized, and right now I think they're delivering on their pre-orders. Stuff that if you have just a little bit of technical acumen and some handiness, you could put something really neat together in a fairly affordable package that would just take your shows to the next level. So I haven't been in contact with them directly, but I've joined their Discord and have been asking a lot of questions because I know a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff. I know absolutely nothing about DMX or lighting design.
Yeah. Well, me neither. And I have had Chauvet DJ products. Your band sounds great, but as a look,
don't rock in the dark.
That's right. We should reach out to those guys. We have bigger numbers now than when they left.
It's true.
But I'm about to torch it because I'm going to say I really hated the way their sound-driven lighting changes worked. They were just random and
too
chaotic.
Sensitive.
And you could dial in the sensitivity kind of, but even when it was hearing beats, what it did on the beats was kind of, who knows? It did a thing, but it wasn't a designed thing. So I've always left mine on just sort of auto color change, which is the bargain basement version of it's better than nothing, but not by much. But I will tell you, in rehearsal, which is the only place I've used the Maestro DMX, my lights did things that seemed like they meant to be done. It was like, it was almost like a person was there making choices. It's pretty good. It's pretty good and only going to get better. So yeah, pretty excited about that product and glad to have them on the team.
Well, and that whole concept of it was kind of confusing to me because I was under the impression that the point is that it just does the thing.
Well, it's very configurable in the ways that it just does the thing.
Well, and that's what it's supposed to do. And that's not their fault. That's my inability to comprehend it. But the idea isn't necessarily for you to just plug this thing into your mixer and just let it run. You can do that. It is fully able to run in that fashion. But what they're really trying to do is take kind of the artistic and technical part of it and simplify it to a language that people who aren't familiar with this ecosystem can navigate.
Exactly. So you have cues like chill, energy, purple, movers, right? Like you set up presets and then you move through them song by song, maybe if you choose to. Given I'm driving audio and now lights from the stage while I play, I'm probably just going to set it and forget it. But even if you do that, at some medium level of something, it does smart things. It really looks like maybe there's a person driving DMX there. It's pretty cool.
And with some of the newest offerings, they literally dropped a firmware yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The intent appears to be that it's just an easier way to automate.
Yeah.
So you can still do it with DMX triggers. You can do it with MIDI commands. It's just that very basic MIDI command does something very sophisticated.
Yeah.
Instead of just like changing colors.
Yeah. And listen, those of us selecting songs out of Band Helper can trigger that right from the song change queue in Band Helper. You can say this song is going to be always green, right? And it triggers your green queue in Maestro DMX. But there's a lot of ways to now automate stuff that would have been like you'd need a dozen hands if you're going to be the guy playing the guitar, running the sound, running the lights, you know.
Or hiring
other people. Yeah,
a lighting designer.
Spend money on somebody doing that. I've seen some great shows, even in small spaces, smaller venues that had really invested in lights and had a person running them, and it was really impactful.
It's exponentially better.
Yeah, and so this isn't probably going to get you all the way to that. I don't know. Maybe give it a year of development. Maybe
it'll get you there quicker than most things.
And it'll get you to some of the same impact in a much more lightweight, personnel-wise, at least.
For sure.
Way. So, yeah, it's a cool idea.
I'm super excited. Again, I don't know anything, and I feel like I'm about to start drinking from the fire hose about this particular thing.
Yeah.
But it's just another skill set. It's another thing to onboard, and that makes us better equipped to help you guys down the road. So we're all for it.
You met them at NAMM, right?
I did not.
Oh.
This was one of those things where I had a shower thought, and I was like, I really want to get my hands on these things because, we've had some companies reach out to us about doing demos and things. And I don't know if you guys follow the channel, but I dropped a portable music stand review this past week. That was a really cool product. And I did a video today, actually, as we were recording this, about the SM7DB being on sale.
I saw that.
That's a crazy deal.
I didn't even know that existed. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, so that was a NAMM release. They were like,
right.
And I think it's such a clever name because it's the SM7B is the regular one. Well, the one with the preamp is called DB, like decibels.
Smart.
Clever. And it's a great product. I mean, we're both jawing away on our regular SM7s with
through our cloud lifters,
onshore signal boosters.
Right.
I've got the Soyuz mic launcher for those keeping track at home.
And I have a cloud lifter.
So they were just like, we'll just cut out the middleman.
Yeah.
Or we'll be the middleman, I guess.
Why let someone else take that $100?
And not to jump the shark, I would probably have saved this for the pre-show, but the email came in while we were getting ready to start. I got an email from Gibson this afternoon talking about, hey, let's get on a call and, everything's coming up. Coverbandconfidential,
it's all
baby.
Happening. It's all happening.
We're live. This is how you know. I mean, this is how.
If that turns out to be too big a release, hey, those of you watching on the stream, you're in on the secret, and we will not put it out on the podcast. We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll just cut it out. It's so easy.
Yeah, editing. It's a thing.
Editing. Actually, Schulte hit me up. He was like, I don't normally watch the video of the episode, but man, you do a whole bunch of editing on this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that video's jumpy as hell.
It takes a lot of work to make this audio flow real nicely.
That's right. Yeah, surgery.
But we're just trying to make sure that at least for the widest net, which is the podcast audience, that it sounds great.
Yeah.
And it flows nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got a good tool there too, a thing called Descript that lets you edit it in transcript, right? So it shows you it just caught me saying right. So, and Adam is going to carefully edit that out. So I don't sound like a repetitive doofus every time I say right. So that's how that is.
Except for this, as it's an example.
Except this example, right? Right. Yeah. And so that's
guys, this wasn't meant to be so pitchy. Like we were
well, on the podcast it might not be.
Use promo code CBC to save 10% on
things.
What is that thing where like the ball trimmer? I don't know. We're not sponsored by Manscaped or Thumbtack for that matter.
Right.
All right. I think we've covered all the other stuff. Hey, guess what? There's no review this week. So if you want to hear your name or, hear us do that particular section of the show, leave one.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Right to the top of the line.
On that note, let's go ahead and transition. Now, this is something that was not necessarily a part of the game plan for this week's episode. This guy that I know on social media through TikTok and Instagram was like, hey, I'm trying to get plugged in with a booking agent in my market. Will you look at the email that I normally put out and let me know your thoughts? And I got it and sent him a very personalized critique of the things that they needed to change. And in that process, felt like this is probably something that we can boil down generically in a way that benefits everybody. So, it wins on two fronts. First off, I don't have to name names and draw attention to that, and everybody else benefits from it. So we decided that this week we're going to talk about the 5 things not to put into a cold email to a venue or a booking agent or at a place you want to play.
Yep.
And it's one of the things where we as musicians and we as artists get really caught up in the details and ultimately screw ourselves out of opportunities because we're trying to do too much. And so we felt like there were 5 particular things that I guarantee as you're putting these things together, you're like, this needs to go into it. And we're trying to stop you before you end up blowing it.
Right. Right. And
so don't blow
I would say the ethos here, you're familiar with the term kill your darlings.
Tell me more about it.
So it's from writers, mostly the sort of beat era writers who were the thing is like how to edit your own work because you love your work. You love every word you've written. You love every clever little phrase you wrote. You adore it. Every little nuance of every character. But the advice is like, kill your darlings. All that preciousness needs to get out. It's got to get slimmed down. It's got to get tidy. And we really want to think that way as we make your way through this conversation, because you're absolutely right. Every single thing in this email, which you've shared with me, that person sent to you, was crucial. There's no fluff in terms of how that person was thinking they needed to have this email happen. And then you and I looked at it and were like, holy moly, there's like a lot needs to come out of this.
Yes.
So, if you can think, kill your darlings is the the watchword of this.
So the first thing that you should not include in a cold email to a venue or a booker is a bio. And by bio, I don't mean a descriptor about the band. I'm talking about the personnel.
Yep.
Typically, the person who's booking your show doesn't care that your bass player is named Fred.
No.
There's absolutely no reason for that information to be in the email at all.
Yep.
Now, the only exception for that is if somebody in your band is legitimately famous in whatever context you're dealing with.
Yeah. Or you've got some other kind of marketable fact about them. My last band, my drummer was a Grammy recognized artist, which means he was on an album that made the first cut of selection for Grammy nomination. It was not nominated, but it was in the cut before the few who were nominated and then the one that won, which means he can claim to be a Grammy recognized artist. And that was worth saying. We felt like that was worth saying. And so we called him out special about that. And since we were naming people, we named all the rest, but because it would have been weird not to, but that would be the one exception, or if you've got somebody who's been prominent in a scene and they're in your band and it's worth noting, that'd be the exception. But otherwise, like the fact that Boo Boo Jones plays bass, like doesn't matter.
So as a good example of that is one of the members of the Patreon community used to be in Cowboy Mouth, and that would be something that you could put into a bio. And I don't feel bad about shouting him out specifically because there's been a lot of people in Cowboy Mouth. So it doesn't necessarily narrow it down to a specific person.
True.
It could be a very wide net of people.
True.
So unless you have something that really is going to move the needle for you, like if you're in Chris Shiflett's band, well, Chris Shiflett plays guitar in Foo Fighters. That's something you would mention.
Yep.
But if your guitar player doesn't play in Foo Fighters, I don't think you need a bio, really.
Listen, the girl singer and fiddle player in my current band also fiddles with a really, really popular band. Makes it hard to book her for things, but it's a good call out. So I mentioned that, and bookers are like, oh, there is cred to that. So that's worth calling out. But
context matters.
Yeah, just a list of names and what they play, like, take that out. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
It's not a thing.
The next thing your cold email does not need is a full set video.
Yep.
In this particular email that was sent to us, first off, there were multiple videos. But the very first one that you click on was a 30-minute set.
Yeah, and the email, the way this email was designed, it's a little aggressive. So these emails are actually attachments. They're not links off to YouTube. This is a very heavyweight email to like receive and deal with. And yeah, the first one is a half hour long. No, nobody's watching that.
The problem with that kind of approach is that you're putting a lot of the responsibility on the recipient, because if you give them a 30-minute video to peruse, you're going to get at best 15 to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And you're asking them to either watch 30 minutes of video, which they probably don't have time to do.
They're not going to do that.
Or they're just going to randomly kind of scroll through the video and hope that it lands on something good.
Right. Yeah, no, you got to help them. You got to help them find the good parts.
So instead of doing that, you should have a 30 to 60 second promo video link, and there should probably only be one.
Yes.
Not multiples.
Right.
What you do is you take that 30-minute video and you cut it down to the best 30 to 60 seconds of that 30-minute video.
Right.
Which you shouldn't have any problem doing. Unless
it's going to be a kill your darlings kind of proposition, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be, you're going to feel like I need this whole verse and chorus of like three or four songs, and a whole verse and chorus. You absolutely don't. You don't need a whole chorus.
Just the good part of the good chorus.
Right.
So yeah, don't make it hard on people. Make sure that you are making it as easy as possible for them to say yes, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. We're trying to remove the barriers to yes.
Yep.
So in this case, just take your 30-minute video, set up your greatest hits. 30 to 60 seconds, make it as easy as possible.
Yep. Get in, get out.
And on that note, you don't want to put too many photos.
Now,
do you want to put a group photo? Sure.
Yep.
Do you want to put maybe one more photo of the band looking cool and people having fun? That would be good. But you don't need individual shots of every single member. You don't need multiple individual shots of every single member.
Nope.
You want to, again, it's just another confirmation of you being the solution to a problem.
That's right. The photos make you look legitimate. That's all there is to it.
100%.
As we talk about this, I've been scrolling up and down this email that was sent to you, and the subject line of it is the band name and then the word acronym EPK. So when I saw that again, I looked at it before we hit record, but just now I realized why it's so chock full of all this stuff is because it is an emailed EPK, which is the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
An EPK should live on the web. The email is a separate thing with a different purpose.
Yes. If you're going to think about it in a business sense, the email should be top of the funnel into the EPK.
For sure. Or even less. Listen, just since we're on email now, the place that we played St. Patrick's at yesterday, and I know that booker is like terse. He sends like one sentence emails. I sent him an email yesterday that said, "Thought about Halloween yet?" ? And he replied today and said, "Yeah, 31st is a Thursday. You in?"
Done.
We're in. Booked. Right?
Easy peasy.
I didn't attach photos or any of that, right? The email is like targeted right at how I know he thinks. And so a cold email, you don't have that, but nobody thinks as voluminously as this email that we're looking at.
So the only objective for the media that you're including is to make it easy for the person to visualize what is going to happen at their venue.
Correct.
And how it's going to ultimately benefit them, solve their problem, fix their, their schedule.
Versus an EPK, which are photos that can be used for marketing.
Yeah.
Content that they can deploy in their own marketing content, right?
Right. And there's value to that.
Totally.
And you should have one.
100%.
But just make sure that it's a thing that you link off to.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep the thing that is going into their inbox easy to consume. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
That's what it's there for. This one is also something that was, I guess, specific to this particular email pitch.
Yeah, I've never seen this before.
I think, I've seen it in other ways, but this was a situation where they went through their venue history, but also included ticket sales, which objectively makes sense because you're going, hey, this is a working example of what we are able to generate.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like I'm showing you the value I can bring to your venue. It seems like
100%.
That.
Yeah. The issue, though, is that it was too thorough.
Yeah, it was every gig. It looks like every gig they've ever done.
Well, if it wasn't every gig they've ever done, it's a lot of gigs that they've done in the past multiple years.
Goes back to 2012.
Okay, that's another example. So maybe too comprehensive. And it was too comprehensive. It told us too many things.
Yep.
So it told us how many tickets they sold in relation to the cap of the venue, which, again, great information, super helpful, but doesn't necessarily show our strengths.
Yep.
Because the intent behind a pitch is that you want to only show your strengths.
Right. Right. And so when it's, we played this place and sold 30 tickets. We played this place and sold 30 tickets. We played this place that has a cap of 70 and sold it out. One of those you want to talk about. Two, you just don't need to.
Well, and you also don't have to be that specific.
You don't. You can say, I sold out this venue.
Or, in the pre-record, you were saying the way that you should do this is that if there is a bio or any sort of descriptor, you can say, we've sold out this venue, this venue, this venue, this venue, and this venue. That's the way to approach it.
That's right.
Because that's just home runs. That's the highlight reel.
That's right.
Let me show you how many times we've kicked so much ass. That's where you want to be.
Yep. That's the story you want to tell us. We've sold out, the following names.
These venues.
Yep.
And if it is a thing where it's like, okay, we didn't sell it out, but we played this venue that's got some distinction or it's got some cachet
for sure
in the scene.
Yeah.
You just say we've played this venue.
Played this venue. You can also say a number of the things in their list are festivals, and they've listed how many attendees there were. I don't know how valuable that is, but you could say we've played festivals including for up to crowds of up to whatever. That'd be a fun way to do it. But in prose, right? The way this is built in this email, it's kind of little tables, and it's hard to consume, and it's overwhelming in ways that don't sell well.
So you had some thoughts about the formatting in general. Why don't you, I think this is a good time to kind of dig into that particular thing.
Well, listen, I get my personal email in Gmail, and Gmail in its own interface only shows you so much of an email and then says this email is truncated, click here to see the rest of it. And when I did, I found out that it showed me about 2/3 of the way down this list of accomplishments in venues. Mm-hmm. And when I scrolled down, the contact information for the people who, if I'm going to book, I like, great, all this stuff. I'm convinced. I want to book them. The contact information was below that Gmail cutoff. So that's deadly. That's just, I'm scrolling up and down this, even if it's just an extra piece of friction between the buyer and the communicating back to you. And you just, you don't want to do that. You just don't want to do that. So the thing is, keep it short. I think that's kind of the overall lesson here, because I couldn't have gotten to the email addresses and the phone numbers to book you without sort of getting to the bottom, realizing Gmail had cut it off. Oh, I see what happened. Click that, see the whole thing, scroll out on the bottom again, understand that there were still a dozen venues and attendees and all this list stuff that I hadn't scrolled through. Then, okay, there we go. I see it. Right. Just makes it that much harder. And you really, the point here is to make the email easy to respond to.
Totally. So the last thing, because, let's be perfectly honest, we just needed 5 because it's
right. 5 is the right number.
And this is a thing that we've talked about hundreds of times before at this point. Unquantifiable designations, which is just a very fancy way of saying things that you haven't necessarily earned in regards to what you've accomplished as a band or a project.
Right. Atlanta's finest 80s band.
Hottest.
Premier.
Yeah. Bestest.
Coolest. Now,
coolest.
I have one exception. There's one exception I'll allow, and that is if you go to porktornadoes.com, it does say the Midwest Premier Party Band. Thing is, they are.
Also true.
So, that's unearned was the word you just used.
Yes. Or unquantifiable.
Well, Premier is unquantifiable, but I would say that those boys have earned it.
This is just an anecdotal example. The things that we have in our bio that are kind of like that, it's a few. It was the nation's premier 80s tribute, and that was attributed to a newspaper in Kingsport, Tennessee, where we played 1 year after playing there like 3 years in a row. So we can now say the nation's premier 80s band in our bio because somebody else said it.
You can cite sources. I love it.
The other one, which is something that I've shared on other podcasts, and I feel like I probably mentioned it here, and it's something that probably isn't available to everybody any longer, but in the infancy of Cameo, you had a lot more leeway about getting people to say things that you wanted them to say about a non-personal entity. So in our case, I had reached out to a couple of kind of 80s icons. Debbie Gibson did a fantastic promo for one of our shows. The other one was Mark Goodman, who's one of the original MTV VJs.
Yeah.
And a part of the thing that I asked him to say, because we were promoting a show, was members only throwing the greatest 80s party in Atlanta. Well, now I can just take the greatest 80s party in Atlanta, Mark Goodman, and put it on everything.
It's genius.
I made that happen because I had the forethought of going, if I write this and he says it, then I can use it.
Yeah. So you think Cameo people are smarter about that now? They're careful about that now?
This would fall under a different category. So you can do personal Cameo and now you can do corporate Cameo. And this kind of stuff would fall under a corporate umbrella. And it's not that they won't do it. It's just that corporate Cameo costs a hell of a lot more than personal Cameo does.
Sure.
So if you are an emo band and you want Chris Carrabba to do something that helps promote your show, if you want the really handsome guy from Dashboard Confessional to plug your show, it's a lot more expensive than if you want to have him say happy birthday to your girlfriend and or wife.
Makes sense.
Which I didn't do.
Yeah. Yeah.
At all.
Well, that would she have wanted that? Oh,
you didn't see that video of when we went and saw Dashboard.
No.
I've never felt more invisible.
At the end of the night, she didn't remember your name. Yeah.
I felt like Clay Aiken in that video about when he's like, if I were invisible.
Right.
That's who I was. I was Clay Aiken in that video. Those are it. That's it. That's the 5 things that don't need to go into a cold email.
Very good. Very good. And then listen, the other thing just generally about cold email is have some sense of expectation management around them, right? The thing that people say is, I send all these emails. Nobody ever gets back to me. Yeah, they don't.
Sure.
It's a numbers game. Don't take that personally.
Yeah. Throw as many against the wall as you can.
Totally. And then my move, of course, is to follow up personally.
And even if it's not quote unquote personally, use some sort of system, use HubSpot, use some other sort of CRM that can at least help you keep track of things. Now, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Apple guy. One of the things that has been implemented in a recent update to macOS is that Mail reminds you to follow up on things, which has been an absolute game changer for the business, because they'll go, hey, this lead that came in that you responded to hasn't replied in a couple of days. Why don't you go ahead and send them a follow-up? And it just puts it at the top of the inbox so that when you sit in front of the computer, it's right there. So
Gmail does that too. It's great.
It's fantastic. So take advantage of those kinds of things and just be persistent. That's how you break through. And then, we've talked about this. It was a few episodes back. At some point you build the reputation and the cold emails stop and you can just be like, hey, it's me.
Right.
Let's go.
Yeah. Like me with the Halloween guy. Like I can drop him like, hey, thought about Halloween yet? We'd love to be there.
Yep.
Booked. Boom.
Yep. Easy peasy.
Yep.
And that's what we're here for. It's for you to send emails and it to be easy and peasy.
Booked. Boom. We want that to be your story.
All right, folks, that's it. Are there any things that we did not mention? Things that you think don't belong that everybody seems to put in their pitches? Let us know. Coverbandconfidential@gmail.com. Leave a comment on the YouTube version of this video. Any other thoughts, passing words? I big thanks to our friend for sending this out. This was a really great opportunity to kind of dig into a topic that honestly applies to every kind of music project. Doesn't have to be cover band, just musicians in general.
100%. And hope you take our criticism in the spirit and was intended. We want you to succeed and go.
This is not a criticism. It is constructive feedback.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Not criticism. We're not here to criticize. We're here to help.
There you go.
If you like sports show, you can do it in a number of ways, but we'll go ahead and let Mike take care of that for us.
The Midwest premier outro host.
Absolutely. In Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Adam Johnson.
In Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
You have been listening to the Coverband Confidential podcast for the week of May 10th, 2024.